Good morning. I'm Muriel Bowser. I'm the mayor of Washington, D.C., and today we are in Oxen Run Park in Ward 8. We're talking about public safety and announcing another partnership in our efforts to combat violent crime in Washington, D.C. I'm joined by members of our public safety team to include our federal partners. You will hear from the Chief of Police for the Metropolitan Police Department, Chief Conti, as well as the United States Attorney for the District of Columbia, Matthew Graves. We're also joined by members of my administration who help coordinate services across all 8 wards, including Julia Irvin, the Director of DC Mokers, Chris Geldhart, the Deputy Mayor for Public Safety and Justice, Linda Harley Harper, the district's gun violence prevention director, and various members of our public safety team. You've heard me say, and you will continue to hear me say, we are not going to stop until we have every resource, and we throw every resource at the recent rise in gun violence in the District of Columbia. And that's exactly what we're doing. Just over a week ago, very sadly, we had to reckon with about the worst act of violence that I'll ever have to report or could happen to a family. A mother was shot and killed by a stray bullet while sitting next to her son. An 8-year-old has lost his mother because of the wanton and reckless use of guns in our city. That should stop us all in our tracks. It should focus us on every single homicide and everything that we can do to stop it. We must recognize this with this gun violence as a city and a nation, that this is a gun culture that is feeding cycles of violence and destroying families. So we need families and friends to work with us. That's us in the D.C. government. We need to ensure that everybody knows all of the services and opportunities for a different path for their lives. And I promise you, and I promise our young men, we have better opportunities available. You don't have to be scared walking the streets. You don't have to continue to make poor choices with guns. Let's find better ways. We need to make sure, too, though, that anyone who is willing to pick up a gun and use it against their neighbors knows what the consequences are and knows that we are committed to the certain delivery of accountability and justice. So today we're announcing a new partnership that is going to specifically focus on 4 police service areas in Ward 8. In the 6th and 7th districts, where most of our homicides have occurred. This partnership builds off of the summer and fall crime initiatives that have been very successful. MPD will work collectively with D.C. government agencies, community partners, and federal law enforcement officials, to include the ATF, FBI, DEA, U.S. Marshals, United States Attorney, CSOSA, and the D.C. Housing Authority, to better target the people that we know are using guns in our communities. So again, our collective goal is to extricate people from cycles of violence, to ensure that our services and supports can help people make better choices, but for sure to remove people from the community who are using guns, terrorizing communities, and to hold them accountable. So with that, I'm going to turn to Chief Conti. We'll then hear from our United States Attorney, Matthew Graves. Chief.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before I get into the discussion about the Homicide Reduction Partnership, you may recall that there was a shooting here in Washington, D.C. back on January the 27th, it was a Thursday, at 3:30 a.m. at the Days Inn Hotel, 4400 block of Connecticut Avenue in Northwest. On that morning, 20-year-old Deja Cleary of Waldorf, Maryland, she lost her life that morning unnecessarily. You may recall, again, that were 5 people that were shot when she lost her life. But I told the community on that day that we would get to the bottom of it. And our commitment is strong. We are attempting to locate 18-year-old Gerald Thomas. There's currently a warrant for his arrest for second-degree murder for the murder of Deja Cleary. Mr. Thomas should know that the Metropolitan Police Department and the U.S. Marshal Service, our reach is far and wide, and our efforts are relentless, and we will find you. I'm asking for the community's help. If you know Mr. Gerald Thomas, if you've seen Mr. Gerald Thomas, if you had contact with Mr. Gerald Thomas, to please reach out to the Metropolitan Police Department. You can contact us on 202-727-9099 or text us anonymously, 50411, again with information related to the whereabouts of Mr. Gerald Thomas. The second case I wanted to bring your attention to, the mayor really already alluded to this one, talking about the young woman, or the woman who lost her life, 54-year-old Pamela Thomas of Northeast D.C. was murdered sitting next to her 8-year-old son. We have circulated images of the suspect, and as these images, as we get better images, I will continue to bring that forward to the public. We will make these available to the media, but I really want to make sure that we are circulating these images. This individual, we believe, is responsible, and we'd like to talk to this individual. We believe that he went to the area of Lincoln Heights. I was the commander in the 6th District for 7 years, and there are many people in Lincoln Heights who know me, who know my face, who know my name, and have my number. If you know who this individual is, and you live in the Lincoln Heights and Clay Terrace area, I'm asking you to reach out to the Metropolitan Police Department. Thanks to our partners with the ATF, we are now offering up to a $40,000 reward for the arrest of this individual. So I'm again pleading to the public. We're asking for your help. We're asking for your partnership to find the individual who took Pamela Thomas's life on that evening. It's very fitting as we talk about these, as we transition and talk about the Homicide Reduction Partnership that we are starting here in Washington, D.C. We are joined today by many of our partners in the criminal justice system, as the mayor has already talked about. MPD strategies for 2022 consider 2 important factors. We want to focus on intelligence-led strategic priorities with an emphasis on violent crime and removing illegal firearms from our streets. Our Homicide Reduction Partnership will focus on 4 police service areas where we saw the most homicides in 2021. 2 locations in the 6th District, Ward 7, and 2 locations in our 7th District in Ward 8, PSA 603, 604, 706, and 708. These 4 PSAs accounted for 23% of the murders in our city in 2021. 6th and 7th District alone accounted for 62% of all homicides in Washington, D.C. last year. Police districts 6D and 7D accounted for 62% of the homicides. Our Homicide Reduction Partnership captains this year that we have chosen are Captain Matthew Fitzgerald from the 6th District and Captain Colin Hall from the 7th District. And by committing resources an entire year in this case, we hope to establish an environment that will sustain the successes that will result in less murders in our community. This replaces our summer crime initiative, which is only for a few months, or in our fall crime initiative, which is only for a few months, to ensure that we give the intense focus in communities beginning March 1st through the end of the year. We have seen focused crime prevention work in both summer crime prevention and fall crime prevention areas. The Homicide Reduction Partnership will include elements of both of those, SCI and FCI, but enhanced by greater collaboration and contributions by other agencies, all here today. Each district will execute operational plans that are intelligence-led, incorporating the best practices of community policing, problem solving, hotspot policing, and focused deterrence. We are allocating resources from our Violent Crime Suppression Division, the Crime Suppression Teams, Criminal Apprehension Unit, who will give priority to the Homicide Reduction Partnership areas. MPD's law enforcement partners, ATF, FBI, DEA, United States Secret Service, United States Marshal Service, DC Housing Authority, and CSOSA, have all committed to assign agents to the Homicide Reduction Partnership areas and allocate resources. That is significant. That is a significant contribution to this effort. The Homicide Reduction Partnership teams will identify community needs and areas of concern through community engagement and walking neighborhoods with other DC agencies. MPD will work collaboratively with Building Blocks, DYRS, and the ONE's office to share information, review significant events, and provide resources to those who need it. We will implement robust strategic engagement and community outreach activities. So some may be wondering, in other communities, how do we plan to handle those? We still will have the capacity of providing the same level of great service to communities all throughout the District of Columbia, even with this effort. Last year, we announced the formation of our Community Focused Patrol Unit. We are still utilizing these data-driven units to supplement the deployment of patrol districts in communities experiencing high violent crime throughout the city. The Community Focused Patrol Unit are focused on addressing acute issues. They are flexible and provide impactful community engagement. These are our officers that are primarily on mountain bikes and scooters engaged in community. Our goal is to expand deployment during violent crime hours in our city. Together, we will work to address violent crime and homicides in our neighborhoods. I think the key word in all of this is partnership. Partnership on a level that we have not experienced in the District of Columbia before. Yes, there's been collaboration and so forth, but with the assistance of our federal partners here, this is a force multiplier for the Metropolitan Police Department, with individuals from their respective agencies being co-located, physically located in the same space with the Metropolitan Police Department. We've done little pieces here and there with ATF, with our NIBIN Investigations Unit, but what we have seen is that this really works. If you look at our stats for the Summer Crime Initiative and Fall Crime Initiative areas over the course of the last 10 years, we see double-digit reductions in violent crime and homicides every year. We want to expand that, we want to do it year-round, and we want to have an impact in our communities. I'd like to invite the U.S. Attorney, Matthew Graves, to speak about the U.S. Attorney's role in holding homicide offenders accountable in our city.
Thank you, Chief Conte, and thank you, Mayor Bowser. I'm the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Matthew Graves, and I and members of my senior leadership team are here to say that we are fully supportive of this initiative. We've seen an unacceptable rise in violence in our community, and these districts that are being targeted have borne the brunt of it. And I think you can tell by the broad array of law enforcement, federal and local, assembled today, that there are resources behind this initiative. And I can tell you that we've had a number of conversations, and all of us are focused on doing whatever we can to make sure that 2022 does not look like 2021. But as the chief said, we cannot do it alone. We need the help of our fellow community members. Our fellow community members know who is driving the violence in their respective communities, and they can be our most effective ally in making sure that we have the trend that we want to see in 2022. I'd like to thank the mayor, the DC Council, the Office of the Attorney General, and all of our partners for their leadership and their collaboration. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the mayor so that she can answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, U.S. Attorney Graves, and thanks in advance to all of the viewers out there who are going to assist MPD in the homicide investigations that the Chief mentioned. Any questions? Darcy?
Good morning. So some information came out about the concerns of residents, the polling information that came out. crime is a major concern among residents here in D.C. Obviously, you've been announcing, and the chief's been announcing different things. I was here several months ago in this very place when you announced the scooters and things like that. Do you feel like the messaging and the things that you are doing are people realizing how much you are doing? Is that not resonating? Or do you feel like this is going to make the difference in terms of residents' concerns?
I think that residents are rightly concerned, as we are, and we've been talking about for months, if not for years, making sure that we're attacking crime all the way across the spectrum, from law enforcement efforts that we're talking about today to opportunity programs that we have talked about as well. So our focus is making sure that every part of our ecosystem has what it needs. Police certainly, and are showing up in person, stepping up to deal with the issues of crime as urgently as we can. Yes. Do we have any mics here for Mr. King? Coming, Kobe.
Oh, thank you. You mentioned the ecosystem that you have here. Is the D.C. Attorney General represented here as well?
I don't think so.
Isn't he an important part of this ecosystem?
Absolutely.
Why isn't he here?
You have to ask him.
Was he invited?
I'll have to check on that.
Okay.
Yes.
My question is actually a follow-up to, I believe, Mr. King's question here, but in terms of the initiative today, how does this address the juvenile portion that both you and the chief have made very clear is very important here, and especially after learning that it was a 15-year-old that was arrested in the Petworth station shooting that happened yesterday?
As the chief mentioned, we're focused on violent crime and homicides, and the great proportion of that the shooting and fatalities have occurred in just 4 PSAs. And the chief can talk about the deployment and how having those focused deployment of officers along with other services has driven down crime in the cases of the summer crime initiatives and most recent fall crime initiative.
Yeah, the other thing too, I think it's important that we point out when we talk about homicide reduction partnerships, while we do see some juveniles that are represented in that space, the majority of the homicides that we see have not been of our juveniles. The perpetrators of those homicides have not been of our juveniles. Some of the other crimes that we've seen across our city, specifically our carjackings and our robberies, we have seen an uptick with juveniles being represented in that space. So while we want to work with all of our partners with respect to specifically homicides that we've seen in these areas, these are more adults between the ages of 18 and 24, sometimes 18 and 34, kind of depending. But the homicide suspects, primarily, that's your largest age group between 18 and 24. Yes, ma'am.
A couple questions for the chief.
Yeah.
You were here talking about crime. Just
Yep.
yesterday, we had a shooting not too far from here.
Yes.
Is there any update to that shooting that we had yesterday?
Yeah, so we're talking to the victim. We're trying to get to the bottom of it. Thank God that victim was injured and not fatally injured. So we do have some things that we're following up on, and we hope to continue to work through that to bring closure to that case as well. Yes.
And then, and also right now, we have a large law enforcement presence here, hopefully to instill more trust and build that gap in the community. But right now, your office, one of your officers is under investigation. Yesterday, Mayor Bowser mentioned that that person may be connected to January 6th. Can you tell us any more about that officer?
Well, thank you for that question. If you recall, when I had my press conference, the mayor mentioned a piece of that in her when she spoke, but I said that I think it's too narrow to say just January 6th. I think we need to look at the entire spectrum. This person worked as part of our intelligence unit, so we want to look at all of that stuff. Nothing is off the table, and we'll continue to go down that road. To say January 6th, that's a very narrow thing to say, and I wouldn't just say January 6th is the focus. Yes, ma'am. And then you.
Chief, follow up to that. I mean, can you confirm as of today, still no charges against that member?
That's
and
correct.
Then are there any concerns you could say at this point that the actions of this member put the lives of your fellow members in danger?
We don't know that for certain, and that's part of the investigation. If we knew that, then that would be a different conversation, but we don't know that for certain. Yes, ma'am. Over here.
Thank you. I have a question to the mayor. My name is Nina Nieberger. I'm working for German television, CDF, and I have a follow-up to what my colleague just asked. There was an article in the Post just today that residents of DC are increasingly fearful of the crime in the district and that your approval ratings are falling because of that. So my question would be, is the city actually doing enough to do something against the violent crime in the city?
Well, as I've already stated, if we're having increases in homicides and carjackings, people are going to feel scared about it, and they're going to want their mayor to do something about it. And that's my job, and that's what we have spent every single day in months working to do. It's also my job to make sure that the entire ecosystem that supports public safety is stepping up and doing all it can as well. And so we're going to look for increased opportunities to create new partnerships and to work on all of the programs that are working and to dispel of the programs if we find that are not working, to make sure we're working on that. So let's talk about, if you want to talk about polls. I don't spend too much time talking about polls because it's my experience, having won 5 elections and going into a third one for mayor, that we do the work every single day and explain what we're doing to residents of the District of Columbia. And they look to the mayor to make fixes where fixes need to happen. The truth is, I've enjoyed incredible approval ratings over my course in time of being mayor, and I've done that by doing the job and doing the job well. And that is the message I continue to tell residents. One thing that I also know is when I talk to residents about what we need, they respond accordingly. And one such thing that I've talked about for the last 2 years is that we need MPD at a full deployment level. And right now we're at the lowest level that we've been in a long time, in 20 years. And so we will put MPD back on the path to 4,000 officers. We started last summer. We took a package to the council that would help us get started. We didn't get it all, but we're going to come back for more until we can put our police force on a solid path to 4,000 officers. Okay, you haven't had a chance to ask a question.
We're getting reports that you all were warned by DHS about a possible truck convoy coming to the district, and that about 500 officers a day will make up civil disturbance units next week with time off and leave canceled. Could you confirm any of that, or tell us about a plan of action if we are having these disturbances possibility coming?
Well, I think the chief wants to say some things preliminarily, and we'll continue to update you as our planning evolves.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mayor. So, as for all of our First Amendment demonstrations that happen here in the city, we have to be in a posture of preparedness for the information that we know. Obviously, we follow the trends around the country, just as you guys are doing. And when we see trends that may impact us here in Washington, D.C., we prepare for them. As the mayor stated, we are working with the number force strength that we have on a pathway to get to 4,000. But I want to make sure that the resources that we have here right now are prepared for anything that may come here to the District of Columbia. So we are working on that.
Any other press questions? Press? Yep.
Hi, I'm Alexa Kors with the Wall Street Journal. I just wanted to follow up on that last question to the chief. Does January 6th, what happened on January 6th, factor into your posture now when you're thinking about future potential disturbances?
Absolutely. I mean, we think about all those things with any demonstration that we have here, any First Amendment, any riot. Those are all lessons learned, and we'd be foolish not to. So those are certainly things that we take in consideration for possibilities that we may see here in our city, and we plan accordingly for that.
Okay, I'm going to take one more round. Darcy?
Chief, this just a follow-up regarding the investigation of one of your own.
Okay.
Do you have a timeline as far as when that investigation started, when that may wrap up, if any other members of the department could be involved in this, or any other departments as well, given this is regional?
No, I don't have any of that, Darcy, that we can share at this point.
Sam?
I'm curious, Chief, too, about this. You've seen what happened in Ottawa, where they just basically just stop. And any plans there? I mean,
Yeah, it's a difficult situation, Sam. The one good thing here, I think, in the District of Columbia, we have a subway system. We have alternative modes of transportation. People love to bike in our city. People love to walk in our city. Certainly, it's an incredible situation, one that we have not seen here in the District of Columbia. Certainly, one that they have not seen in Ottawa, and I haven't really found it anywhere across our country other than there. I mean, you think about the impact of this. On 390 or 495 a couple of weeks ago. A snowstorm with 2 or 3 tractor trailers made for a terrible situation there. So we're going to plan as best we can, work with our partners, both local and federal, to do whatever we can to mitigate it. But right now, as we're working through, just kind of planning out what that will exactly look like, we'll be informing the public as we get closer to that time with recommendations, right? I think we have to be realistic about what we could potentially see. There will be disruptions to traffic, that kind of thing. And I think we need to be very candid with the public about what some of the expectations, based upon what we've seen in Ottawa, what some of those things could be that we might see here in the district.
You said that I think it was ATF was contributing additional funds for the reward. Is that?
Yes.
Do I have the agency correct? I'm just curious their reasoning and just some general assessment from you on just how this case stands.
Well, it's sad, Sam. I think, when our entire city heard about this, I mean, people were just not, and again, it's not to say that one homicide is more important to another, or more important than another, but, this 8-year-old kid his mom got murdered next to him. Think about that for a minute, right? This kid will probably have issues for a very long time to come. That being said, it motivates me even more that we got to find this guy. And if it takes a financial thing to do it, to get him into custody, to identify who he is, and let the public know that we can all work collaboratively together to bring people like this to justice. If it was $50,000, and I'm sure if I ask my FBI partners over here, and I might do that before this is over with, we may see that reward even higher. But right now, the important piece is I need to find this guy. He's a community guy. Say it again. So there are additional parts to the investigation, and there was a person who was chased. I don't know if it was this guy, if I could say it that way. So anything beyond that will be getting too far in the investigation. We think that there were 2 people who were out there. Maybe one person was shooting at another person or something like that. But there was a person who was chased. We're not sure if this was the person who was chased.
I just want to follow up on this question of coordination. The Mayor, you have a violence interruption program.
I do.
The D.C. Attorney General has a violence interruption program. So it's a his and her violence interruption program. But what about something like
what does that mean?
You have one, and the Attorney General has one. And
what it means, Kobe, I have to interrupt you. The district has set up 2 different programs. We set up the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement that is in the line of authority for the mayor, her in this case. The city council set up another program in the Office of the Attorney General.
Why 2 programs?
That was set up by the council, and you will have to refer that to the council members.
How does Cure the Streets, Chief, work with what you're doing? This Cure the Streets program that's been talked about by the D.C. Attorney General.
Well, can I just answer broadly, and I'm going to ask Linda to come up to address it, because she is the person in our organization responsible for all of our alternative to law enforcement programs. But as Linda comes up, the way all of the violence interruption programs work and the Cure the Streets model is slightly different than the Office of Neighborhood Safety model is. is to hire credible messengers or violence interrupters, people who are known in the community, who are leaders in the community, who can help us identify those people who are also leaders but are doing the wrong thing. And if we identify those leaders and pour services in those leaders, they can help us stop crime before it happens. That's the idea behind those programs. Cure the Streets in the Office of the Attorney General and the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement that is in the mayor's line of authority. But you were asking about Cure the Streets specifically.
How do you coordinate? Are they coordinated in any way?
That's
the question I was trying to.
All right, Linda will address that.
Sure. So good afternoon, or are we still morning? Cure the Streets and the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, the Violence Interrupters, we are one city. They're working in different communities. They have recruited some of the best that we have in our city to do this really difficult work with a really difficult population. I look at it as a positive that we have more than one model working in the city, because it's going to take all of us and all the different models to make this right. And so we don't have to have one model in the city. Cure the Streets and ONES have two different models, the Violence Interrupters and Cure, but they both have results that they're able to point to show that they are working effectively. And so I think that it's important for us to look at it as one city with different models and not necessarily get into the his and hers, as you said, because we are coordinating. I think MPD will confirm that Cure the Streets has an arm's length relationship with them to call on them when they need to, as does the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. We are all working collaboratively. The Cure the Streets and the ONES Violence Interrupters, I would look at them as the bridge to service delivery. And so their job is to identify the focused people that we know need supports and services, to identify an alternative lifestyle to maybe what they're doing now, and to have other alternatives, and to use them as a bridge to service delivery. And so the services and supports and opportunities that the mayor has made available through the $59 million that has been committed to this particular population, those are available to the Violence Interrupters and to the Cure the Streets folks, so that we can all have connect these persons to services that will make a difference in their lives. So that's our goal, is to try to connect and engage those in our community who are disconnected, to pull them back into the fold, and to have them to have opportunities to have a positive and productive lifestyle.
I have one question for the Chief, and Mayor, two questions for you. Chief Conte, on the discussion of the need to hire more police officers, there's been a photo going around for a couple weeks now showing an MPD ad on a New York City subway train talking about gamers. Can you tell us, who exactly are you trying to recruit and why on a New York City subway train?
All right, so we are the nation's capital, correct? This is the nation's capital. And people from all across the country are interested in being the police here in our nation's capital. We recruit far and wide. I love to have DC residents who want to be police officers. I'm one of them. We have a robust police cadet program, and we hire from within. But we are not limited by the borders of the District of Columbia, because people all across the country are interested in what's happening here in Washington, D.C. So we don't want to deny them an opportunity. Gamers are welcome, and everything else that's listed on that ad. So I've been hearing a lot about this ad lately, but hey, we are recruiting, and there certainly has been an uptick in the interest in the Metropolitan Police Department since those ads been running. Thank you.
And we want them to work for MPD, not the FBI or the DEA, or no offense. We want to come work for Metropolitan Police.
Mayor, I want to ask you, last time we spoke to AG Racine, he was very critical of your leadership. I want to ask you, can you tell us,
Stephanie, honestly, I'm not going to do any politics questions, and we know, excuse me, we know that the Attorney General is doing a lot of politics. What we're talking about is way too important for that. So if you have a specific question about crime fighting, I'll answer it.
Respectfully, Mayor,
yes.
For the residents of D.C. who are concerned about this back and forth between you two, can you talk about where progress has been made in discussions in recent weeks between the two offices? And then separately, I have a question, another question on the trucker.
I really don't have anything else to add to that. What was your other question?
The other question is in regards to, leading up to January 6th, you were very vocal in telling residents not to come out. With regard to an anticipated trucker protest in the district, are you at that point yet where you're advising residents to do the same?
We're not at a point to give specific instructions to residents as yet, but we will. Yes, ma'am. All right, I'm in my second round.
Okay. This is for Mayor, you and Chief.
Yes.
A few weeks ago, we stood outside and you announced a partnership with Prince George's County.
I did.
In a hope to reduce the carjackings. You had a big arrest later on that week that I think was on Suitland Parkway. How is that relationship, even though it's very new and that you guys just recently announced it, but how is that relationship also working with the neighboring Prince George's County to reduce the crime in teens and children committing crimes?
Well, we have a very good relationship, which is not new, with Prince George's County, but our focus on our borders and the carjackings and the young people, unfortunately, we tend to know who the young people are, and they're going back and forth. There are kids coming here to commit violent crime. They're young, but they're committing violent crimes, and vice versa. So the chief, and I've asked the team, and we want to have some regular communication to you, and Chief Conti will update you on that.
Yeah, so thank you for the question. We continue to work well with them. After that arrest on Suitland Parkway, a couple of days later, another significant arrest where we charged an individual with over 15 carjackings, robberies, etc., firearms. We're looking at that individual who's also involved in some other crimes here in the district, and it's a good partnership. I mean, that's no other way I can say it. I mean, we're working very well with them. I'm very pleased with the information sharing that's going back and forth. The chief of Prince George's County, and I think we have a meeting either this week or this is Friday, so it must be next week. We have a meeting coming up specifically talking about the information sharing piece around juveniles, and there's some things that we might be able to do to kind of help some of our other partners in the ecosystem to work better in that space. So we'll continue to do that, and we'll update the public. I'm going to be very intentional. Every time we make these big arrests, I'm going to be very intentional about putting out press releases and let you guys just kind of follow these cases through the system.
All of these offices and agencies coming together, you have that relationship with Prince George's County, and so you guys are doing your part, you say, to fix this ecosystem or broken ecosystem. What is your specific charge, though, to this community in particular for them to assist you in reducing the crime?
Well, I think I talked about this a little bit yesterday, right? I mean, I wish that we could have some strong parents to get to their children before we got to get them system involved with all of this. I really wish that would be the case. And if they make it past the parent level, then maybe Wands and Linda, and I really wish that we can help them there. That would be awesome. Dr. Bazran is here, mental health. I mean, if we can help them there, that would be awesome. But at the end of the day, when people are scared and crimes are happening in their community, they want people to be held accountable for that. And they don't care how old they are. So when we're talking about homicides, and we're talking about robberies, and we're talking about crimes that scare the hell out of people, I want to make sure that we are doing everything that we possibly can. We are sparing no resource, federal or local resource, when it comes to making sure that we reduce crime in this city.
Okay, any community questions? Yes.
Good morning. I'm ANC Commissioner Kevin Coleman, AB04.
Hi, Commissioner.
How you doing?
Good.
I understand the WANS program, and they're doing an excellent job with their violence prevention.
Thank you.
But what monies are being allocated to the pre-violence prevention, like the youngins, like the kids, the recreation centers, to stop the violence before it happens? Because right now there's a lot of young kids making dumb decisions.
Well, all of our violence interruption activities aren't limited to adults. They focus on children as well. And in several of our schools, we have specific credible messenger and violence interruption programs for their schools. in addition to safe passage programs back and forth to school. So I'm glad you asked me about kids, and I'm also glad that the chief mentioned parents and families and communities. This week coming up, as you know, our kids are on their winter break. And we want parents to reach out to their community centers, recreation centers, to make sure that kids are engaged and involved in activities throughout. We spent a lot of time working with Councilmember Trayon White here in Ward 8, making sure that we're making new investments in recreation centers. And over the past 7 years, we've been very proud of the increased investments that we've made in Ward 8 recreation centers, but we continue to look for ways to advance those investments. Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, I have one community question, and I'll come back to you. It's interesting. Kobe comes out to a press conference, and he's going to keep us standing here in the cold.
Yes.
That's okay, but I'm going to be around. I'm going to come back to your question, and then I'll be around to answer if there are any more lingering questions.
Yes,
sir.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
my name is Kevin Petty, and I run the transitional facility here. I also sublease to some of the Curtis Street of violence interrupters right here, and I'm feeling real good about the coalition that you guys are to deal with crime. I'm just concerned with the city. You know, we had the highest incarceration rate in the world over the past 50 years and what it has done to the community. So I was reading about a program recently through the U.S. Attorney's Office. It's called the Restorative Diversion Program. Would y'all be including anything like that inside of, because we can't incarcerate our way out of crime?
Sure, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because as I mentioned, and every time I talk about this, our public safety system is not just the police and law enforcement. We've also been out, we were at the Tennis and Learning Center talking about the grants that Building Blocks has made to all of our violence interruption programs. And we continue to talk about that. Linda, do you want to talk about our restorative justice focus areas?
All right. So regarding restorative justice, restorative justice efforts throughout many of the city agencies. I know, for example, at the Department of Youth Rehabilitation Services, there's restorative justice programs for the juveniles that actually operates inside of the secure facilities to help the young people when they actually get released. There's several different efforts, and we are talking about increased restorative justice efforts in the FY23 budget, so you should be hearing more about that as well.
Last question.
Well, this is just a brief question.
Okay.
The day before Thanksgiving, 17-month-old kid was shot. Do we have any answers to that question? You know why it happened? How it happened?
Yeah, thank you for that
question. What happened to the gun?
Yeah, that was on Chester Street, I believe it was. We're working that case, and we have not brought it to closure yet, but we're working very closely with the U.S. Attorney's Office. Obviously, I think I shared with the public that we were not getting very much cooperation from all of those who were involved. But the U.S. Attorney's Office has been diligent and working through the process to really kind of get to the bottom of that. We're not at the point where we can talk publicly about exactly what that is, but I'm very confident in the work that they're doing that we'll get there. Oh, absolutely. So Captain Fitzgerald, come on up, and Captain Colin Hall. These two guys, Matthew Fitzgerald's assigned to the 6th District. Captain Colin Hall, he's assigned to the 7th District. They work under the leadership of Commander Darnell Robinson at 6D and Commander John Branch over at 7D. So these guys will be really the focal point and the MPD points of contact to really coordinate these resources. Executive Assistant Chief, who's here, is Sean Benedict. He'll be working very closely with our team, with our federal partners. We kind of stole him from the feds, so he already has a great relationship with these guys, but they're going to be the ones really driving this initiative behind the scenes every day, making sure that we're doing the ground and pound work to make a difference in community. I think it's important to point out, you know, the mayor mentioned it, and Linda kind of touched on pieces of it, but again, this is not just an MPD thing. This is the law enforcement portion of what has to be done. We can't incarcerate our way out of it, but we also can't service our way out of it either, right? So there has to be a healthy balance of those two things to make sure that we really see the reductions in crimes that we want to see. And with the police doing their part, with the interrupters and all those other people in the social space doing their part, then there's a place for community to do the community work that has to be done. It's all of us, which is why we're calling this a homicide reduction partnership. Because guess what? If I fail, that means we all fail. If they fail, that means we all fail. If the community is not doing their part, then that means we all fail. So we all should take responsibility. You know why? I'll say this, and I'm going to take my seat. This is the truth. If we were experiencing record number reductions in homicides, I would have 30 rows of people standing behind me ready to take account, ready to take credit to say, hey, it was what we did, the investments made in us that led to this reduction. Well, I'm giving us an opportunity to do that because all of us are part of this partnership. Our media partners, part of this partnership. All of us working to reduce violence in our city. This is our city. We are all here. Some of us live and work, but we are all here doing the important work that needs to be done to make sure that our city streets are safe. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.